The Vortex Blaster Makes War, written by E. Smith, narrated by Saethon Williams. Chapter 1. Storm Cloud, the Vortex Blaster. Dr. Neil Cloud had once been a normal human being, gregarious and neighbourly. He had been concerned as little with death as is the normal human being. Death was an abstraction. It was inevitable, of course, but it could not actually touch him or affect him personally, except at some unspecified, unconsidered, and remote future time. For 20 uneventful years he worked in the atomic research laboratory of the Galactic Patrol, seeking a way to extinguish the loose atomic vortices resulting from the breaking out of control of atomic power plants. At home he had had wife Jo and their 3 kids, and what Jo had meant to him can be described adequately only in mathematical, not emotional terms. They had formed practically a closed system. Hence, when a loose atomic vortex crashed to Earth through his home, destroying in an instant everything that had made life worthwhile, Dr. Cloud had changed. He had had something to live for. He had loved life. Then, suddenly, he had not, and he did not. Cloud had always been a mathematical prodigy. Given the various activity values of a vortex at any instant, he knew exactly the sigma summation curve. Or, given the curve itself, he knew every individual reading of which it was composed, all without knowing how he did it. Nevertheless, he had never tried to blow out a vortex with duodec. He wanted to live, and it was a mathematical certainty that that very love of life would so impede his perceptions that he would die in the attempt. Then came disaster. While still numb with the shock of it, he decided to blow out the oldest and worst vortex on Earth, partly in revenge, partly in the cold hope that he would fail and die, as so many hundreds of good men had already died. But it was the vortex that died, not Cloud. It was a near thing, but when he was released from the hospital, he found himself the most famous man alive. He was Storm Cloud, the Vortex Blaster, civilization's only Vortex Blaster. He had now extinguished hundreds of the things. The operation, once so thrilling to others, had become a drab routine to him. But he had not recovered, and never would recover, a normal outlook upon life. Something within him had died with his Jo. A vital something had been torn from the innermost depths of his being. That terrible psychic wound was no longer stamped boldly upon him for all to see. It no longer made it impossible for him to work with other men or for other men to work with him, but it was there. Thus he preferred to be alone. Whenever he decently could, he travelled alone and worked alone. He was alone now, hurtling through a barren region of space toward Rift 71 and the vortex which was next upon his list. In the interests of time-saving and safety, minions of the drug syndicate had taken him by force from a passenger liner not long since in order to save from extinction a vortex which they were using in their nefarious business. He was driving a light cruiser converted to one-man control. In one special hold lay his vortex-blasting flitter. In others were his vast assortment of duodec bombs and other stores and supplies. As he drove along through those strangely barren, unsurveyed wastes, he thought, as always, of Jo. He had not as yet actually courted death. He had not considered such courting necessary. Everyone had supposed, and he himself hoped, that a vortex would get him, in spite of everything he could do. That hope was gone. It was as simple to blow out a vortex as a match. But it would be so easy to make a slip, and a tiny little bit of a slip would be enough. No, the Vortex Blaster simply could not put such a black mark as that on his record. But if something else came along, he might lean just a trifle toward it. A distress call came in, pitifully, woefully weak, the distress call of a warm-blooded oxygen breather. It would have to be weak upon his low-powered apparatus, Cloud reflected, as he sprang to attention and began to manipulate his controls. He was a good 85 parsecs, at least an hour at maximum blast, from the nearest charted traffic route.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?